Hi class, it's Bill here, continuing our single table query topic. In the first video we did sort of setup issues, setup ideas. Now, second video we talked about the select and the from clause, and now we're going to go on to other clauses, and this one will take a little more time because there's a lot of interesting things to learn here. So let's jump down to where we were. To set up for that, let's first look at the different kinds of comparison operators that we have, because typically when we're comparing things, we usually talk about an expression like a column name, and then we use a comparison operator and then another expression, right? So column name, comparison operator, and then some sort of expression, which is a combination of things that SQL can interpret and turn into a result. So in this case, these comparison operators are here listed for you. So your equal sign, if you want to compare equality, notice one equal, not two. If you want to say not equal, you can either use this, which is more C Java-like, or you can use the old-fashioned kind, which is the outward pointing angle brackets, less than or equal to. Here, note that they must not be separated with a space, so not here, not here. Do not put spaces when it's considered one operator. They must be together. Here's greater than or equal to. Do note that these can work on data types that you might not originally think. For instance, you can use name greater than M, and that says that would come after M in your address book. So if you had somebody whose last name was just plain M, right, you're looking for people whose name is after that in your address book. The other thing to note is SQL here is non-case sensitive, right? It's not case sensitive. So you can certainly do this where you can say first name equals Floyd in uppercase, or you can say lowercase. It doesn't make any difference which case you provide. It's always going to work the same. It will always do a case insensitive comparison. Okay, so now let's look at how you can do complex conditions, right? Because we know here we can do simple ones like first name equals Floyd. Let's go do a quick experiment with that. So let's, for instance, find we have somebody whose last name is Lincoln. So in this case, we can practice by saying where, and then we're going to say customer last name equals Lincoln. Right, so if we want to find just all the Lincolns, notice in this case we are filtering, right? The where clause causes filtering to happen. So here we're saying, hey, we don't want to see all rows, we just want to see the Lincolns. Whether there be one of them or 10 of them or 100 of them, it doesn't matter, we're going to see all the Lincolns. I'm going to execute that, and sure enough here is Elizabeth Lincoln. That's the only row that has Lincoln as the customer last name. Notice here I used equals because I'm looking for specifically that last name of Lincoln. The next thing we want to do is to be able to combine those to make complex conditions. So for instance, if you need to look for people who live in the state of Texas and the lovely city of El Paso, my hometown, if you want to look for people who have both of those conditions, you want to join them with and. Right, so I want to look for people whose state is Texas and city is in El Paso. These are residents of El Paso, Texas. So you can use and you can use or, depending on whether you want both of the conditions to match or only one to match. One or both, right? So in this case, this is perfect. Do realize though that this is not going to work. You can't just put a fragment of a condition and then join it with an or. So even though this might make good English, it doesn't make good SQL. So don't do that. You want to always make sure that you have a full condition to the left and the right of and or. So this is proper, right? Because we've restated the column state. Therefore, this is a valid condition, this is a valid condition, and it's joined by or, fine, right? You can also use not if you need to. I'm not sure we're going to use that a lot, but do know that that's available if you know how to use that. So complex conditions are going to be great. So in this case, let's just go back and let's go look at everybody. So I'm going to comment this line out or just take it out for the moment. Let's just bring everybody, and in fact I'm going to go all the way back to this, right, to select star. Let's go see if there's something interesting going on. Okay, there's more than one Illinois, right, so that's great. So in this case, maybe we want to look for people who either live in Illinois or Indiana, right? So if I wanted to, I could say select star from customers where customer state equals Illinois or customer state equals IN, right? I want to find customers who either have Illinois there or Indiana there, right? So either way, I want to see them in the list. If I execute that, here's my Indiana, here's my Illinois folks. Everybody is then listed that I asked, right? So filtering with a complex condition. Perfect. Okay, so now moving on. When you're working with these, be aware that and is more restrictive than or. So if you're getting fewer results than you might think, you might have used the wrong one. If you're getting too many results or all the results, you may have, again, used or when you wanted and. Especially if you get none, right? If you get no results or all results, you've probably misused these things. For instance, if I try to look for all the customers whose state is Texas and state is in New Mexico, how can they live in both Texas and New Mexico in one row? They can't. So that's going to yield no customers because that's an impossible thing to satisfy. Same thing down here. If you're not careful, if I'm looking for whatever customer count less than 6 or customer count greater than 0, there's no number in the universe, right? Well, or in this case, sorry, all numbers in the universe are either less than 6 or greater than 0 because we're pointing the wrong way on the number line, right? So all rows are going to come out. So just be a little bit careful. Think about and or. Try to get it right. But if you're getting way more or way too few, you might know that you've done them wrong and you might have a clue there. Okay, so in the examples here, there's going to be some challenges. So in class, we'll do some of these together. I just kind of gave away that one, didn't I? I sure did. I should be using some other table, shouldn't I? Okay, so anyway, there are some examples that you can do. Now let's move on to some special conditions that you can do that kind of distinguish SQL from some other languages. Next is these special conditions. These are cool and different things, and that is you can use the word between to do an inclusive range specification. So for instance, I want to see all the customers whose balance is between 1,000 and 2,000. It is inclusive, and you notice the word and is here. This is different than the logical operator and, right? This is just part of the syntax of the between clause. So this would include everybody whose balance is exactly 1,000 all the way up to and including. So 2,000 would be included, 1,000, and everything in between. But that saves you some complex conditions. It's just a nice way to say that, right? So you can use between. You can also say in, right? So I want to look for customer whose state is in this set. And then inside the parentheses, you put either the numbers or the text that you're looking for, separated by commas. And it's going to find and list customers who live in any of those states. And that's, again, very useful for compacting it down and making it more readable and straightforward. Another special case that you can do is you can look for places where the data has been omitted, right? In columns that allow nulls, if they have skipped data entry, it's just going to say null in there. Let's see if we can find any of those. Do we have anybody here that has null phone numbers? I don't think so in this data, but let's see. Do we have anybody here? See, I don't think we have any null data, so that's not going to be useful in here. But you can use that. There's some other, you can use some others like null samples if you want to practice with those. So these are special conditions, again, that SQL allows, and so very nice. Use between, use in where you can. They will save you some writing and it'll be more readable. One more thing, we're going to look at wildcards real quickly. You can say, I'm going to be a little vague and I want you to help match a pattern, right? I'm going to give you a pattern and I want SQL to match it for me. You can use the percent sign, which says I'm going to match 0 or more characters. So in this case, I want to look for people whose name is like, it needs to start with an N, but then after that there could be 0 or more matching characters. So N something, right? In other words, starts with an N, right? That's what that means. You can use them before and after. In this case, I don't care what comes first, but the word Rio needs to then somewhere appear, and then I don't care what comes after. Again, it could be 0 or more characters, so even if the city is exactly Rio, it would still be picked. But certainly if Rio is anywhere in there, it's going to be picked. You can also put the percent sign at the beginning. So this says, I don't care what comes first, but at the end there better be LLO. right? So very useful, and you can also prepend not here. So I'm looking for name not like S. So I want everybody whose name does not start with an S. So those are very, very useful. SQL does support a form of regular expressions, so that's another thing that you can do, but you should learn these so you have them in your toolbox, and then you can add the regular expressions on top. We're not going to talk about them in class, but you can certainly look for them. There's also another wildcard which matches exactly one character. Remember this, 0, 1 or more. In this case, it matches exactly one character. So I'm looking for states that is something A. Right? This won't find A at the beginning, right? It has to be something A. This could be AA or Washington, WA or MA, but it has to be one letter followed by an A. So that's another useful one. You can certainly combine them. I'm looking for zip codes that are 980 one character and then a dash, and then I don't care what comes next. So these are extremely useful. You should learn your wildcards. Do note, as the note here is going to say, when you use like, you should have a wildcard, either a percent or an underscore. If you're using an underscore or a percent, you should use the word like. They go together, right? So don't use one without the other. It doesn't, either it's not going to work or it doesn't make sense, right, to do that. All right, so of course you're going to have some challenges to try, so you can certainly do that. But I think we're going to stop the video here, and then we'll talk about last topics. I think we can get in all the rest with with one more video, but let's cut it here. So please follow on to the next, and we'll see you there.